Hey everybody, I'm doing another episode with a rep. And what we're going to talk about today is what happens when you go into selling a complex service and some product functionality into big companies. How do you get in? How do you keep the momentum going? And how is it different than the other things that you have sold? So we've got my buddy Jeremy on here. We're going to go through his day in his life, what it's like. And I think it's great for us to hear what other reps are doing well. So let's get into the interview. Before we do, please go over and check out the other podcasts, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers. There I answer your questions every day, 7 days a week, as well as the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. If you're into management or you want to get into management, and check out our partners, Co-Video for video email. It's rocking. I'm telling the people who try it, and just try it. See if it works for you. Turn the camera on, send one to a friend, see the impact that you get. I think you'll like it, as well as Pipe Drive with the Brutal Truth coupon code. Here we go. Hey, Jeremy, thanks for joining us today as a way of getting started. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Brian. My name is Jeremy Carlin, and I am a client partner at a company called Theorem. And what we do is we are a services and solutions company, which, besides being the most general description of a company ever, is basically a pretty good kind of description of what we do. Basically, we work with either brands or ad agencies or content owners or ad tech or martech vendors to really solve problems for them on a day-to-day basis for anything that has to do with digital marketing. That's really what we do.
Okay. How big of a company is it?
So Theorem, it's been around for a while. We've been around in digital marketing for just over 15 years, I believe. We might even be 16 at this point. And at this point, we're a little bit over 1,000 people. We're a global company, so we have our headquarters is in the New York, New Jersey area. We have some boots on the ground in Boston. We have boots on the ground in the Dominican Republic. We have two very large offices in India, as well as an office in Australia and London. So we're pretty global at this point.
And how did you get interested in this?
Well, I've been in this business for a number of years. It's funny, I was just talking about this with someone. I actually started my career on the agency side of things and worked in TV and then digital for a while. I almost kind of consider that my secondary education in ad tech and martech and digital marketing in general. And then have really been in the sales process for one way or another, actually doing this selling or helping people organize their sales for the past 8 to 10 years. So it's been enjoyable. How I came to Theorem, the company before that I was working at before Theorem, I was running the East Coast office and business development, and just kind of needed a change. And basically went from going almost like a technology sale where I'm talking about my platform, talking about my tool, and seeing if my tool fits the client. And now my conversations are kind of the opposite, where I'm trying to fit my products and bring custom solutions and services to my clients and trying to fit it into their organization instead of vice versa. So it's definitely different, definitely enjoyable for me, being able to have more, conversations, what kind of problems are you having? What are your big initiatives this year? Conversations like that versus me just trying to basically, quote unquote, sell someone. So it's definitely a little bit different and highly enjoyable for me as someone who's been in sales for a number of years.
And what type of territory do you cover?
So we cover a pretty wide swath of companies. We work with anyone from like e-commerce, retail, and direct-to-consumer companies to some of the companies I mentioned before, the different ad agencies. We work mostly in digital marketing and digital advertising, right? So a lot of our companies are, invested in that area, whether they be media owners or ad tech platforms. We have an international footprint. So if we have international clients, it's possible there's one lead in one, market and then a secondary lead in others. So it's nice in that we have loose targeting, in that I have things that I'm generally targeted against and sell against, and product lines that I'm interested in and tied to. But being able to sell across all of our different product lines is definitely, like I said, interesting and a little bit different. So it's been fun. It really has.
And what's your business mix as far as like new accounts versus existing accounts?
Well, in general, my background is really, apparently I like to do it the hard way, is bringing in new business. So new logos, new business has really been what my driver has been over the last, probably, I would say 5, 6, 7 years. So as far as my breakdown of clients, I have a little bit of a smaller breakdown of existing clients. I have a pretty small sales team, and my colleagues have a little bit more existing clients. But like I said, my forte is really in going out and engineering ways to bring in new business. Yeah. So, my pipeline, as far as like the younger and more nascent pieces of business, tends to be a little bit thicker than a lot of other people in my, position probably. But, it also is nice for me because I have a little bit bigger pool of revenue and possible revenue to draw from. So in general, I'd say I have, in the range of about 8 to 10 existing clients. Like I said, so there's a couple of ad agencies, there's a couple of ad tech platforms, there's a couple of media owners, there's a couple of brands specifically. So it's actually a really nice kind of differentiated client set that I get to work with and speak to. And that kind of gives us an interesting purview into the business because we see all different sides of it as well.
Yeah. And how do you go about getting into a new account? Because that's something that a lot of people are struggling with today.
Yeah, I mean, no, certainly. That's a great question. Honestly, it's you had mentioned to me before that people kind of like to have one topic. And I think one thing that really, kind of works for me in general is persistence. 100%. You have to be persistent. There's that old, I don't know, is it a meme or a GIF or whatever, saying, most the like 80% of sales come between the 8th and 12th touch of the client. I am a huge believer in that. And, in sales in general, especially when you're going after new business, having a thick skin, and I'm sure a lot of your other, guests say having a thick skin is important. Sales is a grind. It's a roller coaster. We all know this. But having real persistence, reaching out to the client, even if you haven't heard anything for months, just checking in, even if it's, 3 months after you got to know, just being around, staying top of mind, I think is extremely important. And it's something it's not like a brain breaker, it's not like a crazy new piece of advice to be persistent and to stick around. But the cliches are cliche for a reason, right? So that's for me. I like to, my sales style, I like to say, is kind persistence. I am very, very kind. I'm very affable and, cracking jokes, obviously not when we're in the midst of a heavy product discussion or something, but, very lighthearted. That's kind of my personality. But having that backing to it and having that persistence and letting your client know that you're there for them, for their business, to solve problems for them, tends to work a little bit better for me personally than the alternate.
Yeah. And how do you do that without hounding? Describe that kindness.
I mean, that's the key, right? It's being persistent without literally having your client want to kill you. Yes. Your potential client being like, I can't stand another email from this guy. I'm going to flip out. Honestly, I think it's a cadence, and I think there's a little bit of an experience factor where if you've either dealt with someone before or if you just know how clients are in general and can gauge reactions by email or phone call or whatever, it does take a little bit of experience to know when you are being straight up annoying versus when you're actually making headway on a sale. And I think for me specifically, in general, it's usually some verbal cues. It's usually either verbal. If you're in person, it can be physical. If it's someone you've never spoken to, obviously email or phone is where you would get some sort of reaction. But even if the reaction, it's weird because even if the reaction to someone who's like, if it's sending on a cadence of every week or every other week, or, just, I definitely don't recommend emailing a client more than once a week. I was at a conference recently, and it's a small story. I was at a conference recently, spoke to a company. We do a decent amount of marketing cloud work overall. And we're a certified Salesforce partner for marketing cloud and CRM and some other things as well. And I was at a conference and talking to one of the sponsors at the conference, and interesting product, didn't necessarily work for us. It was a situation where we were trying to figure out, maybe I pitched them or they pitched us, whatever. But literally the person who was tasked with following up, I think she sent me 4 emails in the course of like 5 business days.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's any client who's going to get touched by that much, email or any reach out. If it was me, and it was me, I was immediately turned off, because no matter how much I like the product or whatever, who wants to be bombarded all day with, especially from salespeople and the kind of persistence that we bring. So it's a tough way to know whether you are actually being, like annoying, or if you're actually making some headway. I'd say in general, a lot of the clients and a lot of like the numbers of reach out, the really great leads that I get tend to want to speak to me, I'd say within the first 5 to 6 reach outs, if I actually get through. And then I'd have to say I'd probably work a little bit harder for clients that end up coming through later in my touch point process. So like if I get through to a client and it's like, after like, anywhere between 10 or 12, emails or voicemails or what have you, and I finally get through to them, they might be a little bit harder to sell, but I'm still in the room. I still have a chance at the business. I'm still, able to possibly turn them into a true revenue generating client. So, again, like I said, it takes a little bit of experience to know, but, once you can pick up on some of those verbal cues, then it's easier to gauge when you're being annoying and when you're not.
And what do you put in those messages that would, encourage them to reply, other than, hey, I'm checking in, or wanted to see where you stood on this project?
Totally. It's another great question. And actually, it's something that I'm specifically for myself trying to improve on. One of the things inherent with having, more strategic conversations and talking through, what either issues or whatever that clients have, is that you're talking about more high level processes or tasks or high level, solutions, true hard use cases that companies are looking for. So I think one of the things that I've really been trying to do, especially lately, is really try and like basically find out what the client really, or what, even if I don't know them or if it's a cold call, what do clients in their place or similar clients that we may have, what are they doing currently? What are they interested in currently? And then see if I can map that to the possible, the person I'm reaching out to. So if it's something along the lines of like, so we work with a lot of media owners, right? And one of our tools is a data aggregation, extraction, and visualization tool. And media owners can use this tool for a whole bunch of different things. But, being able to pick out some of those things. So I'll give you an example. I had a meeting with a tier 1, major media publisher this past week. And I was talking about site management and how, we're aggregating data. And I used this example from one of my other clients where they're literally taking data for ads from a specific content vertical for ads, and then measuring the activity of those ads against specific content. And if the specific content, let's say, auto content is performing extremely well against a specific advertiser, they'll actually take that data and then look at their content calendar that's coming up and see if they can match packaging for that advertising vertical with the specific content that's performing super well. So when I mentioned that to my client, which is a use case that he's familiar with because he's in that sort of area, he immediately jumped and his eyes lit up and he was like, oh my God, this sounds great. Like that's something we could definitely utilize. So I think in general, and again, it's something that I even, someone who's, got, 10 years in the business trying to sell, it's even for me, I'm trying to improve on being able to map not only what we're doing currently, but map that to what clients are interested in overall and specifically for that. So, and if you can, and I think when you strike that chord, when you find something that they're interested in and that brings them true value, you can see the reaction immediately. And it's a much more deep conversation. It's much more interesting. And honestly, for salespeople like me, it tends to drive more revenue.
Yeah. And how much of your business is time-based, meaning that you have to hit them at the right cycle of the year, the product, their marketing campaigns? Is it a very cyclical business?
It's interesting. So our business is a little bit different because we're a services business specifically. So, if a client is reaching out to us and working with us for, either a specific task or a set of tasks, whatever that is, it can be a little bit different. I'm sorry. Wait, I just lost what was your question again? I apologize. I just lost it.
A lot of businesses are time-based. They're seasonal. They're, if you don't hit them at the right time, you got to kind of like wait and be there when the right time arises.
So right. So when we're tied into services, when we're actually tied into services, it's an ongoing business. It's monthly, it's a monthly business where they're delving into us and utilizing our services on a monthly basis. But as far as like bringing in new clients, and I think there's always an element of sales that's, a little bit of luck. If you get in at the right time when you're a vendor and the other vendor has just, made a huge mistake and, you randomly reach out and they're like, oh yeah, we could definitely use a new partner in this area. There's always some sort of element of luck or timing to any sale. But in general, there's probably a few times of the year that are better to reach out than not. I'll be honest, this past couple of months, I actually switched it up a little bit and started reaching out kind of like the third week of December to start prepping for the January 15th, January 21 period, about a month later, because that's when people have their budgets approved for headcount or for different initiatives. So I actually started a little bit earlier this year and actually saw a decent amount of success trying to get through to new clients and new pieces of business because I started a little bit earlier. And again, for me, I'm trying to refine my message a little bit more and be a little bit more of a solution seller and providing value versus just saying, hey, here's my services. Here's what we do. Here's the tactical BS that we do. Instead, I'm trying to be like, okay, this is how this tactical task can help you to solve for this specific solution. And here's how we would get you there, kind of thing. So it's, there is an element of luck and there's a few times of year that are a little bit better. But I think if you really are practicing, a good sales process like kind persistence or something similar that fits your style, you can push business any time of year because you're constantly in contact with clients. You're constantly pushing them. You're constantly trying to see what they're doing, what they're interested in, what value they need. So if you really are, a salesperson with your soul, you're on top of your clients pretty much all year, except when they say, leave me alone. And then you take 6 months break and then, keep going back.
Yeah. And how much time do you spend, learning about the market, learning about these problems that your prospects would typically have and framing a new discussion about that?
So one of the really nice things for me and the structure of what we talk about is that inherent in what we're in our conversations, clients are bringing up to me what they're worried about, what they're interested in, what they're looking to do for the coming year. So being able to just inherent in having those conversations and being in market and being able to talk through all the things that they're interested and worried about. And like I said, we have all different types of clients too. So we get to talk to brands, we get to talk to agencies, we get to talk to the other side of the business, the supply side. So we can kind of take all that information, put it together, and then be able to differentiate what types of use cases and what type of value we're going to present to each type of client. It can be time consuming. I'll be honest. I mean, I think if you're not just doing, blasts of emails, if you're trying to be conscientious and thoughtful about what type of reach out, and I'm a big quantity over quality guy. I mean, in sales, you always have to have quantity. You always have to put yourself out to the biggest pool of business possible because that's just inherent in sales. But I would much rather send 10 super quality emails that take me a little bit longer to do because I'm researching something, or I'm looking at where this person's been, or what they're working on, or what going to the company and looking at the hiring page to see what jobs they're looking to fill and where they're looking to invest. I would much rather send 10 of those emails than 100 of just copy and paste and, move forward. It can be a little time consuming, especially if you're trying to be thoughtful. But in my opinion, it's worth it. It's worth the extra time.
And where do you typically start within an account? Do you go top down, bottom up, closest relationship out? What's your strategy?
I mean, a great question. And I think it differs depending on the client. My first priority out of what you mentioned is 100% people I've either worked with before or called on, someone who knows me, 100%. That is where I would much rather start. If we're talking about cold leads in general, I tend to go straight for the decision maker. That I think at this point, I've been in this business long enough people know me, people could give referrals if, at this point, for me personally, I like to go top down. I'd rather talk to the decision maker. That's also kind of inherent in the sale that I have where, we're doing big process or big tasks, right? We're augmenting or replacing entire processes or tools or systems. So what we're doing, and we have, point solutions too. Like we have clients who are like, we need you to do screenshots for us. Okay, great. We can do that. But we have clients who are kind of can go a little bit deeper than that. And because we're trying to solve these like higher level problems, it's a little bit different, Does that answer your question? I feel like I didn't answer your question.
No, I mean, I think everybody kind of, takes it a little bit different. If you're known, you have a brand behind you, you personally might be known, a top down may be the most effective, and it's all contextual. So much of sales is contextual.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like I had a major tier 1 video platform for content that pretty much everyone in the world knows. I won't say the name, but I knew an account manager, not a super high level contact. And, we had coffee and talked about some stuff. And even though it's not my preferred way to go in, where I'd rather, especially if it's cold, talking to someone who's, the decision maker, I was actually able to get a meeting with the decision maker because I bubbled up from the bottom and I used someone I knew and then, was able to communicate the value that we present. And she, of her own volition, was like, this is really interesting. I'm going to bring it up to my boss. And we were able to get in that way. So, what you're saying is 100% correct. It is 100% contextual. And there's different avenues to get where you want to go. My personal thing is that I like to, especially if we're talking cold, and it seems like we are, when we're cold calling, is that even if you get to the decision maker, if you can get to the decision maker, they might even say, you need to talk to the manager or whatever, the person on the ground who's doing the day-to-day work, because they're the ones who are actually doing this. But because you're getting a referral down from the decision maker, the odds are much, much higher that that person's actually going to meet with you versus you just reaching out to that specific manager and then being like, well, whatever, maybe we'll meet with you, maybe not. I also think when you go straight to the decision maker, you get a lot of high level strategic insight about where the company's going, what they're interested in, what they're trying to do. Whereas someone who's at a lower level, if you start your reach out there, they probably don't have that type of insight. They probably aren't looking for the business, 2 years down the road. They're trying to, do their daily activities. So you get a little bit more if you're going top down, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That referral down is pretty powerful. Hey, Jeremy, it's been a great conversation. Where do people go to connect with you and learn more about you and your company?
Sure. So again, it's Theorem. And my email address is my first initial last name. So jcarlin, JCARLIN @theoreminc.net. If you want to just take a look at our website, theoreminc.net, that works too.
I love talking to other reps about how they're solving the problem, how they come up with their system, how do they approach it. And instead of doing it one-off, starting each day like Groundhog Day at the beginning of the movie, start each day like the end of the movie, where the person has learned from their previous days, learned to compound, learned to build. And that's really what I'm trying to do with the courses. Start the conversation, get the meeting, and closing the complex sale is for everyone to come up with a system that compounds so that each day becomes easier and bigger, more predictable, more proactive, so that all of a sudden the year goes by and you're crushing it. You're going from an A- to an A+ player, going from making 150 to 500. To really compete at any level, to get any job that you really want to go after. All of this stuff can be applied to getting a job and closing those big deals. And you're not alone. You get to hear from other reps. You get to hear about all the problems at each stage of the deal and how to prevent them. Because we all know, if you've been listening to me, that sales is a prevention profession. If you're not preventing, you're constantly repairing. And repairing in sales is really hard. It's like a bent piece of metal. You can bang and bang and bang. It never really gets straight again. But if you prevent it, it always works a whole lot better. And to prevent it, you have to think counterintuitively. You have to come up with a system. You have to learn how it really works. So go to b2brevenue.com, check out the training tab, look at the courses, schedule a time if you're interested, but please be interested. If you want to self-qualify, just check out a bunch of the podcasts and ask yourself, do these make sense to me? Does this sound like what I'm up against? Can this dude help me out? Can his lifetime of sales experience and system that he's developed over 25, 30 years, don't tell anyone, help me out? And then make the judgment for yourself. Because I only want people who are really going to do the work, embrace it. And it's not much work. I'd say about an hour a week minimum, maybe a little more. But if you just do it consistently, each day you'll find yourself getting better. Now's the time to do it. It's summer, right? What are you going to do? Hang around and get miserable because nobody's around? People are on vacation? Now's the time to sharpen the saw, to really get focused, to spend July and August a little extra time to make the money, time to build the system, time to understand the game you're playing and get it out of your head and onto paper and walk through it with somebody. So what's included in the course? It's not just content. It's not just a year and a half of office hours. It's one-on-ones. You get personal one-on-one coaching from me on the deals, applying the courses to either getting into the accounts or building the accounts and closing them. A little 30-minute Zoom call. It's recorded, put into the course, but it's completely anonymous. We don't use your name, your company, your product, or your customer. So there's no worries there, and I'll search to see if there's anybody you know in the course. So what could be better? And guess what my motive is? My motive is to make you successful. That's it. That's all I care about. I've been doing this for 10 years. Yes, I charge money for the courses, but if I didn't, you probably wouldn't show up and take it seriously anyway. Let's face it, we're salespeople. I know it. I am one. I love doing it. Also, check out my YouTube channel, Brian Burns Sales on YouTube. I put my comedy videos up there as well as the podcast. video recordings. Just subscribe to that and let me know what you think is funny or not. Connect up with me on LinkedIn. Just follow me. I'm running out of connections. I got too many that I can't even look through them. I don't know how to begin to make sense out of that. Sorry, I just fell behind on that one. Check out the other two podcasts, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. And what else? Just tell a friend about the podcast. Let's get all these B players into A players. Let's make this year your year. Here we go.